trying to beat the sun up. Grinding hard for mine to see a meal before my sun's up. All I'm saying is I'm trying to get my funds up. Gotta stay strapped, case these niggas.
Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? Thanks for joining in of another episode of Run It Back. You already know how we do. We talk basketball, we talk sports. This season, we've been pretty much focusing on like how the kids had summer league, the AAU circuit, but we're trying to get the perspective from coaches and those that kind of like behind the scenes, because the kids are the ones that's on the forefront. So the coaches and everyone that plays an integral part in their development and growth, you know, we've been pretty much trying to bring them on and getting their perspective. This episode is nothing short of that. You know, we like I tell you guys, it's a history lesson every time you join in. You know, so you definitely want to get your pen and pad. For those coaches, you want to get your pen and pad. For your parents, you know, you want to write some notes down, and also for the kids, for the players, you want to take note. You know what I mean? Because this individual that we have today, you know, he comes with great tools to get you guys to increase your skills at your current level, and also to help raise your ability to get to the next level. All right? So, you know, without further ado, this individual that we have is the author of Boost Your Basketball IQ. You know, you got to get it. Get it on Amazon. It's one of Amazon's best sellers right now. So, without further ado, everybody, I'd like to, you know, warm welcome to Mr. Jason Calabrese. How you doing, man?
Great, Eric. Thank you for having me.
Yes, man. Thank you for joining, man.
It's a pleasure and a thrill to be on your podcast, and love talking basketball. I'm always happy to share some insights to players,
for sure,
coaches, and parents.
Yes, for sure, man. This book that you have, Boost Your Basketball IQ, is so key right now. You know, it's key and it's needed. Because we have a lot of, and even over the years, you know, you get a lot of players that have talent, or they have the ability, they might be athletic, but sometimes they don't have that IQ.
Yeah, and really, Eric, that's exactly what kind of pushed me and prompted me to write the book.
Okay.
So, as someone who's been involved with basketball since a very young age, and, you know, throughout my playing career, and then, like, immediately after getting out of college, I started to coach. And then eventually became a parent of two boys, and I watched them go through and participate. And so I noticed a bunch of things. And as a coach, I noticed that in the last 10, 15 years, there was a big prevalence on a lot of this off-season stuff with like a lot of AAU and a lot of speed and agility. And that's fantastic for skill development and all that. And I had kids that took part in it, so I saw what it was, and I'm not knocking any of that. Okay. But the problem that I saw was the coaches had a limited amount of time to do what they want to do with the players. Like an AAU coach, they had maybe 2 or 3 practices a week, an hour or two, and they're squeezing a couple different teams in one gym.
Right.
And it's hard to go over IQ stuff. You're trying to just teach these kids plays and stuff, so when they got their weekend tournaments, they're able to execute what you want them to. Mm-hmm. Likewise with the speed and agility, usually it's an hour or 2 hours or whatever, and they're focusing strictly on increasing your speed, increasing your skills, your ball handling, your shooting, etc. So, as someone who was coaching, and then after I left the high school coaching ranks and I gravitated towards more coaching, like summer leagues for my kids' teams and helping them out, etc. I would notice a lot of these kids that were very skilled. They went through all the AAU, all these programs, and I'm coaching these kids, and they're like, they could be the most talented kid in the gym, and they would do things on the basketball court that left me like flabbergasted, and I was like, wow, and I would ask them, and they'd be like, oh, coach, no one ever told me that, or like they never knew, and then going back to my time as a high school coach, really. Back then, I mean, this year's brand new where the CIAC allows, in Connecticut anyway, where they allow you to coach these kids in the summer a little bit. Previously, you could have zero contact with them.
So wait, a head coach or anybody on the coaching staff can coach in the summer?
This year, started this year, head coaches can actually conduct a certain amount of practices in a certain time period over the summer.
Okay,
which
that
is
is
brand new.
That's brand new.
So prior to that, I mean, it would be Thanksgiving, and then you're starting on that Monday after Thanksgiving, and then you might have a scrimmage by that
And then
Friday or
game.
Saturday, and you might get 1 or 2 more scrimmages in, and then you're in real games. And now
games.
you get hit with a early snow delay or whatever it may
Mm.
be, and you really at a 2-hour practice, you're really only getting, when you take the scrimmages out, maybe 7, 8 full practices before your first actual game.
Yeah.
So you're going over your offenses, you're going over your defenses.
Mm.
You're actually probably wasting the first 2 or 3 days trying to just make cuts, seeing who should make the team.
Right.
So now if you take that out, you're down to what, 5 or 6 actual practices? To be fair to a high school coach, they do not have time to go over all the
Right.
X's. They go over their X's and O's. They don't have time to go over the little things, the ins and outs, and the things that maybe some kids weren't getting as they were growing up. And so after I left the high school coaching ranks and I started to help out some of my coaching friends and I was scouting for them, I was picking up a lot of stuff, and it kind of blew me away, like the lack of awareness and IQ on the court. And I just felt like there was a big need for it.
And I think too, one of the things that you touched upon is the lack of practices before the game, right? And you take upon like now the prevalence of AAU and preseason tournaments or leagues. Some of these kids aren't even playing on the same team for AAU.
Exactly.
So it's not like, okay, all right, at least, we're playing in the same team as a group on the AAU and the preseason and all that. But some of these kids are on different teams, and then they come with their team for the season.
Exactly. So then, you have the commingling of kids playing, so they're having different, maybe coaching philosophies or whatever's going on.
Yep.
So now, as you're a head coach, when you get these kids together and you're trying to get ready for your season, you gotta essentially make them unlearn whatever they were doing.
Yes.
In a sense, like as far as the plays they were running, whatever.
But they still got to get comfortable with their team
Yes, you got to get comfortable with your team.
that you're going to be playing with for the next 4 months.
Exactly. So they don't have a lot of time to ingrain some of the stuff that I talk about in this book. And to be fair, a lot of people who are coaches out there, we know there's a standard basketball IQ stuff that everyone could have a conversation about. We all know.
Right.
But what I tried to focus on in that book, I didn't want to reiterate stuff that people could get anywhere. So I wanted to be fresh. I wanted to get stuff that people really haven't heard a lot of anywhere. It's just some real, deep insights on some stuff that I know I've seen work successfully, both for me as a player and as a coach. And then also, there's a good portion of that book that focuses on parents and the relationship between parents and coaches, the relationship between coaches and officials, and the relationship between coaches and players.
Got you.
And I think I was able to come at it from those 3 different perspectives because I was all 3. Not every coach is a parent.
Right.
Most coaches were players. But, and then not every parent was a player. And certainly most parents weren't coaches. So a lot of times as a coach, I saw parents would come at you like, with this expectation or just a misconception about what they felt should be happening with their child.
Right.
And instead of having that disconnect and maybe that butting of heads, I share ways to go about it in a more sensible way that works, for all.
So like you touch upon ways on like, I don't want to say proper. Well, I can't say proper ways that a parent could kind of like address a coach. There's a history with coaches and refs, how they, their communication,
Yep.
especially, the heat of the moment, some of these battles, you don't go your way, or you know what I mean. So, just kind of like the communication between in game with the ref and the coaches, and also like the coaches with the players. I've had my brother, Gunny, he was up here. He was on one of the episodes, and he pretty much talked about how the head coach, has a certain job. Obviously, he's drawn up the X and O's. You know what I'm saying? Your assistants pretty much help deliver that message. But sometimes you need those other coaches to help motivate certain kids. If they don't understand something, explain to them when they come back to that bench, hey, look, boom, this is what this is what he's looking for you to do. This is what you did wrong. You know what I mean? Kind of like to soften the blow or just kind of like give them more encouragement. Also, I think some of the assistants stayed there, buffer between the coach as well, because with the parents.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you get more of parental involvement at the games, at the summer leagues and stuff like that. So now they're more vocal on the sidelines, screaming this and screaming that. And so you need someone to, hey, look, turn it down, let the coach coach, or communicate to the parent, hey, your kid is not getting X amount of time because this, that, and the third.
Oh, no, I agree. And I was an assistant coach for many years, and I feel, in fact, when your brother was a player, I was one of his assistant coaches.
Yes.
And I feel that as an assistant, you can offer a lot by doing exactly what you said, kind of intervening, whatever. I think it's important. I do think this, too. I think, some of it falls on coaches. Sometimes coaches, they have this, like, kind of no tolerance. Oh, how dare a parent come talk to me? And sometimes they may take a defensive approach with that, whereas they could be, I talk about that in the book, where you could be a little bit more open to talking to a parent, hear what the parent has to say, let that parent speak, because now that parent feels like you're letting them be heard, right? So now you could share back, give them some feedback. Hey, maybe their son's showing up late to practice. Maybe he's not hustling. Maybe he's fooling around in practice and he's distracting everyone and he's making practice a headache for everybody.
Got you.
Now you tell the parent that and you say, look, why don't you do me a favor? I think your kid could be a great asset to this team, could really help us out. Can you help me get him a little more focused in practice? Can you help? And I promise you, if you do, he's going to see more time on the court.
Right.
And it's things like that I think sometimes people, discourse, instead of having like an adult conversation, sometimes the emotions get too high and people just, they get defensive. Someone goes for, someone's jugular. Or
I think a lot of times too, because those conversations are being had in the middle of,
an
game,
intense environment.
Intense environment, the game, or things aren't going as planned at that time. So now you get this exchange with the parent and the coach. It's not the best. So it's one of those things where, how do you neutralize that? Like, bring the volume down, even this, being that it's in an intensive environment. How do we still control that?
Yeah. Well, one of the tips that I point out in the book is, don't go at the coach right after a real intense game, a real tight game, especially if you guys lost. Because I'll tell you right now, that coach, the last thing he wants to do is deal with an angry parent right after, maybe a couple calls went against him, maybe whatever happened, he's probably, we all know when we're competitive people, when we're coaching or playing, emotions get high. And when you lose and you come out on the losing end, the tensions are a little bit higher than they're in a normal. Wait a day and then talk to him after and say, look, when you get a chance, will you mind if I have a few minutes to speak with you? Sure, if I'm the coach. I'm not going to be defensive. But if you just run into the locker room, barge into the locker room, get up in the guy's face, and, it's not going to be a good outcome. And I point that out because as a parent, if you're going to take the time to go talk to the coach, you want a better outcome for your son or daughter, right? So why screw it up? So you might as well be smart about it and, and do it in a way where you're going to have some success out of it.
Do you think that it's easier or harder now to be a coach as it was maybe 20 years ago?
I think it's probably harder.
Harder now?
I think it's harder for a bunch of reasons.
Okay.
I think back in the day, a long time ago, there was maybe, when I was playing, there was like maybe 2 AAU teams in Connecticut, like a New Haven team, a Waterbury team.
Right.
Maybe a Hartford team. Now, like, Waterbury's got like 6 AAU teams.
Just in Woodbury alone.
Yeah. Or they did a few years ago.
They got it's up there. It's up there.
And I mean, not to be critical of anyone, but some of those teams, some of those players on those teams aren't truly worthy of being on an AAU team. You have parents, disgruntled parents that are out there creating their own programs and stuff just so they could get their son to play, and it's not the elite group of athletes that it once was what they're doing. So what you're seeing is you're having kids playing in tournaments where they're probably overmatched and they shouldn't be in, and you're seeing you got maybe coaches that are coaching there that aren't as qualified as they probably should be. So you're kind of diluting the whole thing.
And then if you think about, not to cut you off, but like when you have, like you said, all those kids probably shouldn't be in the AAU circuit maybe back honing their skills,
Yes.
getting better. And then maybe the following year, maybe, entertain that or go into that circuit. But you get a lot of influx of the, just kids. Oh, we need a, player here. And here's one. The kid might not be that might not be that good. But because the coach is telling them something that they need to work on, the kid don't like it at the time, they have the option to go to another team.
That's true too.
Just like that.
And you know what happens too that I see, and it's sad, is you'll take a kid that shouldn't really be probably playing in that setting,
Okay.
and he's overmatched, but either his dad's the coach or whatever, and they force him out into competition that he's not ready for.
he's not
And
ready for.
so what'll happen is, the sad thing is, it's fine to play against better competition. In fact, if you want to get better, you should. But what you see a lot of times is some of these kids get overmatched and they get discouraged and they lose confidence and they never get it back. Or they just get dejected and they figure that they're not going to be able to be at that level, and they don't, sometimes kids mature at different times, and sometimes they grow into their bodies at different times.
Yes.
And so I think there should be a lot of care given to who's put into positions in certain times. I remember when I was coaching high school, I always wanted to get as many kids to play in a game as possible. I'm talking varsity now.
Okay.
Freshman JV, for the most part, most coaches will try to get as many kids as they can. Varsity game, essentially you're there to win. It's not everyone gets a trophy when you're talking varsity. However, I was very conscious of certain times if we were playing a team that was, had a lot more talent than us, I was very conscious to wait, even though it might have been a kind of a blowout of a game. I didn't want to put a kid in a situation where he was going to get completely overwhelmed and blow his confidence because he's going against players that I knew he was not going to be successful with.
Okay.
Because you don't do your job if you're trying to develop someone and you just put them in a situation they can't succeed in. So you want to make them be able to be successful. So if that means in most games you're able to get every kid in the game for a decent portion of a time or whatever, where it's fair, but this onesie, twosie games where it's a super overmatched situation and you hold someone out maybe longer than you normally would, even though it's a blowout, you might be doing that in the best interest of the kid. Now, what I would recommend is I would take that kid aside and talk to him after and say, hey, look, normally I would have played you more. I go, I didn't feel like you were ready to do this, and we should work on that because I want to put you in the game in a situation like that, but I don't want you to be overwhelmed, and I don't want you to because I've seen kids in those situations just get withdrawn and be like, I never want to go into that situation again.
Right.
And then what good is that?
Right, because now you done lost them.
Yes.
You lost them. As I'm reading your book, and I like how you started out too. Basketball now, I don't want to say nowadays, but a lot of people, when you think of basketball, you think of scoring.
Yep.
High scoring threes and dunks and, hand over, crossover. But one of the most integral parts of the game is defense. And you start your book off talking about, becoming a better defender and stuff like that. And, as I'm reading, I'm like, wow, these are actually strategies that, if you have, let's say you have a couple years with an individual, you can help. He might not be the best scorer, but you can at least help mold him to be a better defender. And you always need a good defender on any team.
Absolutely. And, as a player, I was never the best scorer, the best shooter on any of the teams I played on. I was always probably the best defender because I knew, for one, I was fast and quick, but I'm smaller, but I knew I needed to in order to get time on the court. So,
Yes.
But I also knew that when I did play smart and good defense, how much it helped my team and how much it helped me as a player, and that I would get opportunities on offense off my defense, and I would get opportunities to help my teammates off my defense. So as a coach, I naturally looked for kids that I thought were really good defenders, and a lot of times I would have one or two really good defenders in my starting lineups that maybe weren't one of the 5 best scorers or players on the team.
Right.
But my teams were very successful for the most part. that I coach. So that whole concept of, having a balanced lineup out there, including shooters, scorers, and defenders, really plays out. And if you look in the NBA, I know it's really more on scoring, but if you look in college, I mean, look at UConn this year. Everyone talks about, the shooting that they had with Cam Spencer and Tristan Newton, all those guys, but it was Stephon Castle and Donovan Clingan's defense that just no one could get past.
No one can get
they
past.
Stephon Castle shut down every good perimeter player in that tournament, and no one wanted to go near the lane with Donovan. And they smoked the tournament.
Yeah.
So, it really is true. Defense does win championships.
Yes. And then it's one thing too that I was, that I stumbled upon is the free rebound, right? Now, throughout the years of playing and watching the game, and obviously on the, I don't want to say local school, but middle school, high school, college, you're watching the games and you hear them crash the boards. And that's one of the things that you say. Oh, y'all gotta crash the boards, like especially when you're playing. We gotta crash the boards. That's one of the first things, out of a timeout or going into a timeout, coach will say to the kids, when they're about to, listen, we need this rebound. I need y'all to crash the boards on the free throw. But you kind of devised like a strategy when you think about it that increases your chances when you're on the defense to get that rebound, the free rebound.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it's like, in most cases you say, all right, we're going to all crash the boards and, everybody going to fight for the ball. But when you got a strategy, okay, you're going to neutralize him. The five going to neutralize him. You know what I mean? The four is, probably going to eyes on the shooter, but then you got that three that's going to come through and get that free rebound.
It's a numbers game. It's just you're just taking advantage of the numbers. It's like
wow.
So it's like football, and they count how many defenders are in the box. If there's too many, they're gonna pass. Same concept, really. And it's crazy how it works. And I tell a little joke in the book, but it's true because I have no business playing. I play basketball still in a men's league. I'm 53, and so sometimes I get a chuckle when I'll say, all right, you guys box out. I'm the littlest guy in the court. And I'm like, you guys box out in this, and then I'm going to get the rebound.
Yeah.
And then the other team's like laughing. And then, like 75% of the time, if there's a rebound, I end up with it. And then they just shaking their heads. And it happens. And the guys on my team think it's funny now because I do it all the time because they're familiar with what I do. But I actually have on my website, and my YouTube page, there's video of me explaining that in concept in detail. So if someone, I think you're going to put the links under the podcast, but if someone were to go to my YouTube page, that's the one of the things that I have a video of where I break it down. I show some younger kids how to actually take advantage of that free rebound concept.
Yeah, wow. So I mean, for you, right? What were some of the from a coaching standpoint, what were some of the challenges or the main challenges that you faced, even now, or most recently, that you have to deal with, that you kind of got to, be creative on, navigating through?
Well, not to be facetious, but it was a lot of these kids, I was like coaching over them because they didn't understand what I was talking to them about, like the IQ. Okay. Like I would be using words and concepts, especially when I'm doing like a summer league, right? Okay. So I'm picking up kids from a high school team that I'm not coaching, but I'm coaching their summer league team, so you don't really have practices. And right. I'm using terms or concepts that they're not familiar with, and it's just like, all right, I got to take you aside and explain what that is or what this. So that, and again, that's what really kind of propelled me and pushed me into wanting to do the book. Mm-hmm. I always thought about it, and the beginning of the book I talk about when I was growing up, I picked up a book. I did whatever I could to try and improve myself as a player. There's a book by a gentleman by the name of Dick DiVienzio. Okay. He was a great coach and player at Duke. Mm-hmm. He unfortunately passed away at a young age, 52. I think it was like 2002, 2001, or a long time ago. But I had his book, and I kept that book with me from my playing days into my coaching days, and it was like an encyclopedia because it had like little sections, and I kind of try to do my book in a similar manner. And even when I was coaching, I would take sections out and I would give them to like little sections for my point guards. Hey, you guys, I photocopy. You guys need to look at this. Or I would, I would say a power forward or someone that had an issue with a particular skill or something.
Yes.
I would say, here, check this out.
Got you.
So it's kind of what I wanted that to be, like a reference material. But because I had that experience of reading that book and finding it so useful for me in my playing and coaching career, in my mind, I always wanted to do something similar because I would keep notes of like after practice or after games of stuff that I felt like, this was something that I should impress upon with the kids or teach them and stuff. So I had a whole list of stuff I wanted to include in there.
Yeah.
And so it was easy for me to put that together, what I wanted in like the, basically the outline of what the book was going to be. It was just, then it was a matter of getting the time to put it all together and do all the stuff about, because I had never wrote a book before, so it was kind of hard to just, well, how do you get it published? What do you do? And all that. So.
Yes. And towards the end, we're going to talk about like those steps in getting it published and stuff. But,
Okay.
But I mean, do you find? I mean, obviously, this book is for everybody, more or less. Who do you see more so taking advantage of it, like right now, cracking it open? The parent, the coach.
Well, certainly, I would say a player would get more advantage out of the book now. The reason I did include stuff for parents and coaches in it. Most players become coaches, or most coaches were players, I should say.
Right.
So they could always use it. And for the younger kids, it makes sense if you're a parent that's involved. You could maybe, if you're teaching your kid at home, I figure if a parent's reading it to help teach the kid some of the basketball skills while they're reading it, let me put some parent stuff in there to help the parents as well while they got it in their hand. So I could reach the biggest audience as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what I really aspired to do when I did it.
And as you're reading it, it is, like a kid can grasp what you're putting in. So it's not like it's over their heads. You know what I mean? They can see it. But it's good too, because nowadays it's good that you say that with the parents. We have an influx of parental involvement with the kids that's playing sports, not just basketball, but all sports. But we're talking in particular basketball. We have a lot of parents that coach their kids, or and just at the games involved. So if they can grab a hold of this read, and outline things that they think their kid need to, that will help their kid. A lot of times these kids are influenced by the parents. So,
Absolutely.
And like you said too, instead of sticking them in every AAU they can find, okay, boom, maybe we're only gonna do one AAU, but we're gonna spend the rest focusing on these skills, because this is what we need to increase for the next, season.
Yeah. And in that book, I point out resources that anyone could get.
Okay.
In person, online, whatever, where they could give to their kids to get better. So if you're not doing an AAU, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be working on your game or getting better. And maybe you're not ready to, but you could plug into some of the resources that I listed in that book that I know are successful and that work and are run by good people. Also, I point out in the book, it's not a novel like you read it and then you got to pick up where you left off. Like, I specifically made the book small enough so it wasn't something too intimidating for a kid, because I know kids, the attention span these days with the phones, they see
something this
they
big,
see
it's
this
like-
big. They're not even gonna open a page. They're not even gonna turn it open.
it.
At least this here, they flip through, they can find something they're interested in, and hopefully they read something and catches it, and they say, "Wow, I gotta read the rest of this."
Yes.
And then it's not anything that's too long and involved, so you could like skip around, you could come back, you could mark a page, you could take notes in it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's meant to be like a working thing that you could use, and you could hand it down. Hand it down to your younger brother.
Right.
Hand it down to when you have kids. I'm hoping that book's around for years to come and that people love it and enjoy it.
Well, a lot of people obviously enjoy the book because it's one of Amazon's bestsellers.
I know that.
How do you feel? How did you feel when you realized that your book was up there at those heights?
So when I got to the point where I was going to launch the book, it was all ready to go. I took a lot of time to invest in finding out what the best way to go about that. And I did a lot of research. I hired a consultant, and we probably did a lot of the right things that a lot of maybe first-time authors wouldn't know.
Okay.
But I knew it was important because I knew the benefit of doing it the right way would reap itself with the rewards down the road.
Yeah.
So by doing some of those things, I wasn't totally surprised that it ended up doing as well because I expected it to. The surprising part was the staying power because I expected when I launched it that initially I was going to have a big burst and it would. I figured it would go pretty close to the top and it would give a high ranking and I figured it would do all right. Well, it's been doing better every single month. It
Yes.
blows me away. Now in the last 30 days, now not just Amazon, it's on BarnesandNoble.com, it's on Walmart.com, and depending on the day, it's usually always a number one bestseller in one of the three main categories for basketball books. And depending on the day and the other ones, it fluctuates. But there's people like Phil Jackson, whose book is before or after mine.
Right.
Steve Kerr,
Yes.
Steph Curry. It's really so surreal to even imagine that your book would be alongside these.
Right. It's in the
little-
company of these greats.
Yeah, it's
that put
crazy.
together a book. Your book is right alongside those.
It's crazy. So most of the people, I guess, if you look at the reviews and what I've gotten, a lot of the people who have read the book have thoroughly enjoyed it. So I think that's what helps.
Yes.
That the people, they got a lot out of it, and they were kind enough to leave me a nice 5-star review. And
Yes.
and so I only had a couple that weren't 5 stars. So apparently, it's resonating with people, and I guess people are probably, I imagine people are referring the book to their friends and telling their friends whatever. Because every day you see there's all these sales, and you're like, well, I don't even know how. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not like yeah, I get it. The first week or two, it's your friends and family, but it's been like 9 months,
Okay.
and so
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Well, as people, we tend to gravitate on what we think works or what's been proven to work. So when you're, like you said, Steve Kerr, Phil Jackson, these guys are kind of like gurus in the basketball. Steph Curry, these guys are gurus just in the world of basketball. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So for them to put books out, that people are gravitating to, obviously they want to get the knowledge. But when you put this book in there, it's even just to boost your basketball IQ. We have so many people or kids that were athletic but lacked the IQ that they needed to, expose their greatest potential. You get a book like this, it's just the title alone. It's like, well, okay, how am I gonna go about this? Or how can I help someone do this? And when you get the information that's in this book, it's like, okay, wow, I didn't even think about that. Okay, you know what? That does make sense. Oh, okay, let me try this. And you start to put these little, and it's not like a science project. These are little, things in there that's, little tidbits like, oh, okay, let's try it. That does make sense. That would work. So when you see it, and here's one on any level, and like I, said, another question that I had with, and I was talking with one of my buddies about this, making a average player, good on defense. It's one of those things, like you said, you might not be the best, athletic, but if you can build their endurance, help increase their speed and agility, and give them the knowledge of what you want done. Now you increase the technique and the strategies of, defending someone that might be a little bit faster than you. Okay, well we're not gonna get faster than him in this game. So how can we neutralize his speed? Or you know what I mean?
Oh,
so
yeah.
it's different strategies where it helps you work with what you have. Okay, my guy, or we got a group of guys that don't match up well athletically with this team, but we can neutralize the athleticism with this. And this book is a tool that someone can use to even help coach their team along. Let alone help someone get better.
So I agree with that, all that, and defensively, funny story. So I'll tell you, it's just kind of for me, it kind of right after I launched the book, which was November 30th last year. Okay. So I said I was in a men's league. It's fairly competitive.
Okay.
I'm probably one of the oldest people in the league that plays, good minutes. There's some older guys that don't really play, but essentially I'm checking 25, 26-year-old kids in their prime. And I mean, I don't know if they don't know it, they could go by me, or if I'm just so good at using some of those techniques, but I'm able to like literally defend these guys without embarrassing myself on the court because of the techniques I use in it. And funny, one of the other things, there's a whole section in there that this is one of the things people don't talk about a lot. Is transition and transition defense. And how to go about it. And there's a lot of tips I talk about, but the week after I launched that book, we had a men's league game. And for whatever reason in that game, there was only like 6 of us, so it was easy for me to do. When I came out of the game, early in the game, we went down by a bunch of points. And then when I went back in, we ended up having the lead again by the half. So in my head, I was figuring out the plus minus. Second half, same thing happened. I sat out for a few minutes. The score went the other way. I came back. At the end of the game, my plus minus, here's the amazing part about this. My plus minus in that game, and for people who don't know what plus minus is the amount of points your team increases while you're on the court versus when you're on the bench. My plus minus was 24 in that game. We won the game by 4. But here's the amazing part. You think maybe I scored like 20 points, had like 10 assists or something. I had 5 points, maybe 3 rebounds and 3 assists. It was because
it was impacting on defense.
I knew how to get back on defense and slow down the break. I knew how to control the ball on offense and not turn the ball over. I knew how to get the ball. Maybe I wasn't making the assist, but I knew how to get the ball to the guy who was going to make the assist.
Got you.
And it's those little things. So it was really surreal for me because it really kind of, I was like, man, so the stuff I talk about in that book really makes sense. It really works.
It works. It works. And for somebody that's, looking to, get a book published or anything, may not be a basketball book, but just a book period, like what are some, first steps that one may have to take?
So the first thing that I think a lot of people who are unaware just assume, wow, I got to find someone to publish my book. So I wrote my outline of the book, my concept. I wrote a couple sample chapters. And I spent like 4 years when I got time trying to send it to different...
so this is 4 years in the making?
It took me longer than that. So I spent like 4 years just trying to get a publishing company to take my book up and pay me like to do it, because that's what I thought you had to do. And then I started looking into some stuff online. I realized that you could self-publish on Amazon. And so some people are like, so at first the whole concept of self-publishing, I'm like, that's for people that just can't get someone to publish the book. They're going to go self-publish. Well, turns out, really the only people that have a publishing company, give them like an advance or whatever to publish the book, are celebrities or famous people that they're getting a book deal and they're going to sell that book off of their name and everything. Well, so there's major disadvantages to that. One of which is you don't really own the royalties and the rights like you do if you self-publish.
Got you.
And so what you make off of each book is way reduced off of that as well. And then you got to worry about inventory on that and everything else. Once I learned that, I was like, wow, that's not really where to go. And then I started learning now, if you self-publish, and you put your own title on Amazon, for instance, and if you do the right things and you market it correctly, you could make a lot higher percentage of the profit. And Amazon is amazing because here's the thing. Once I hired my consultant and I got someone to do the formatting for me, I got the cover work done. All the diagrams, everything else was all stuff I didn't do. I had to bring in outside people to do. Once I got that all done and I published the book, I'm like essentially done. Like I don't fulfill it. You order a book on Amazon, they print it in a warehouse, they ship it. Nothing happens. I get a check at the end of the month. I have people from all across the world ordering this book. Last night, someone bought the book from Japan. I've had, obviously the United States is the biggest market, but I've got a high percentage of the sales come from Canada, Australia, Germany, India, the UK, Occasionally I get some oddball ones like Japan, like last night.
So you're like the pressing it up and all that.
That book is on Amazon. Anyone wants to go on Amazon and punch in Booster, they want to go on Walmart, punch it in. Walmart is going to print that book, fulfill it, and ship it to them, and I get paid.
Wow.
I don't. It's so. I think the concept right there of self-publishing, a lot of people are just unaware of. I mean, I kind of thought it would be a slight, like almost like I'm insulting myself if I went and I self-published it.
Right.
Well, I couldn't get a book deal from a publisher, so.
Okay.
But I wish I had known that earlier. I would have got this thing published a long time before that. So, but from the time I made the idea to write this book to the time I got it published, it was probably 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, you know, part of this stuff, especially when you have a family, and you have kids, if you're going to write something, you can't be thinking about other things. So you have to have a focused. You have to be focused, undistracted.
Yes.
You know, you can't come home from work, have 2 kids running around, and
it's not
you
gonna
know,
happen.
pets and this and that. So it was challenging to find the time here and there on a weekend or wherever to try and do bits and pieces of it until I finally got it all together.
Wow. And just to think, like you said, you self-publish it. You know, one can order it. Amazon, Walmart, they all take care of it.
They
Boom.
fulfill it. It's
You get the check.
I don't even have to request the money for the check. They tell me it's coming and it's in my bank account. Like I don't even have to request it. It's everything's automatic. Wow. All I do is if I do anything is I do things like this: a podcast, a book signing, a library talk.
Yeah.
Post stuff occasionally on my social media, and you know, and just let people know about it. But that's really all I do at this point.
Wow. So I mean, I know you kind of like shouted out there throughout the course of us talking, but for our listeners at home, where can they go and find this book?
Well, you could go on Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon.com, just punch in Booster Basketball IQ.
Okay.
You could go to Walmart.com as of like a couple weeks ago, and you could go to BarnesandNobles.com.
Amazon.com, Walmart.com, and BarnesandNobles.com.
And there's a couple other obscure ones like Goodreads, and they're out there.
Okay.
And it's funny because I actually see like people are like buying the book and they're like reselling it on like reseller sites and stuff now. Like it's funny. It's like you can see it.
Yeah.
So
well, it's generating. It's just moving. Wow. Well, Jay, man, this is a great great read. Informational, and that people can take with them. I'm sure as time goes on, there's going to be more and more, people, getting the book. You know what I'm saying? And that's good for you. You might have to come up with a part 2.
I know that's what people are saying. I have to do it quicker this
time.
Yeah,
you might have to do a part 2.
I can't take 12 years.
Right, but again, like I told you guys, man, this is definitely one that this episode is one that you want to tune into, and if you missed it, look. Get this book, Boost Your Basketball IQ. Jay, man, thank you. You know what I mean? I appreciate you coming down and, chatting it up with me and, my viewers and listeners. I wish you nothing but success and best of luck. And, listen, anytime you want to stop by and chop it up, basketball, well, every time we see each other, we start talking about it anyway. But, anytime you want to, be a friend of the show and, well, you're a friend of the show now because you're here. But anytime you want to come by, what I'm saying, just let me know. We'll set it up. But, I definitely think you're going to be doing a part 2 of this.
Well, we'll see. But, no, I love it. Thank you. I appreciate giving me the opportunity to talk about it because it is a passion of mine. So I love the opportunity to be able to talk about the book just because it's something that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm proud of it. It's done well, and to see something that you want to do, think about doing, fight to get done, and then see through the end, and then to have success with it, it's very satisfying. Like I said a couple times, it's surreal, but it really is truly satisfying. Sometimes I like shake my head sometimes. I look and I'm like, I'm like, geez, all these people bought the book today. It's like, why? How? It's like,
definitely.
So it's super, super satisfying.
For sure. And before we sign off, where can my listeners, where can they reach you at, social media wise?
Social media, I have, there's a Instagram page for Booster Basketball IQ. There's actually a website, Booster Basketball IQ, that gives some extra, insights from the book.
Okay.
There's I have my YouTube page, which I really need to do a better job promoting. But if you guys want to go and like and subscribe, whatever you guys do on YouTube, but my YouTube is BoosterBasketball_IQ. I don't think if you don't put my name behind it, you're not going to find it because it doesn't have a ton of subscribers yet. But put my name, Jason Calabrese, and when you search it, there's a couple videos up there. There's actually a neat video. We did a launch video when I launched the book. We had a nice launch event.
Okay.
So that's on there, and like I talked about the free rebound, and there's some other free throw tips and so forth.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, there's a Facebook page, Booster Basketball IQ as well.
Okay.
So
All right. Well, hey, Jay, man. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining in. And my listeners, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Run It Back. You know, we promise and we'd like to give you the best information possible. Again, it's always a history lesson when you guys join in with us. So stay tuned. I'm Eric Lewan from Run It Back CT. Have a good week.